see today, there are 2 projects joining us. Looking forward to hear how that goes as well. But yes, as an organization, we rebound through this pandemic. And I think the key quote that we can actually quote throughout this experience is very simple. There's no use in actually looking forward to see things back to normal, because at the end of this road, there's going to be a new normal. And each of us, and even as an organization, we need to adapt to it and actually need to work toward finding a solution toward how the solution for community project will change. So yeah, as an organization, we always look forward, and of course, along with the people with us as well. Okay, back to you, Atika.
Well, thank you very much, Youth. So that's interesting to hear about Project Myanmar before this. And I think we have seen how the project leaders have actually gone through this challenging times, and we are proud of how they have grown. And I totally agree with you. There's no use waiting for things to be normal, because things will never be normal. Now we have a new normal. Thank you for that. So after this one, maybe we could move on to probably Pirun first, because as I know that Youth Leadership Summit, it has always been done on ground for 1 week every year. Not every year, but every certain years. But usually project management courses are taught to the participants on ground. So how have your team managed these challenges, and what are the changes that has been made?
Right, thank you, Atika. Also, thank you, Yut, for the introduction to SEALNet earlier. Hi, everyone. I am Firan, and I'll be program lead for this year, while as a special online modules. Thank you for the question, Atika. So as you mentioned, the project Youth Leadership Summit has always been conducted on ground, either starting with the first one in Singapore and so on, until the latest one in Cambodia. It has always been a 1 week competency building on ground, focused on skill management, leadership, cultivation, and so on. But then this year, the team have to make creative adjustment to it. By creative, we really mean creative. So first, let's mention the change. Then I will go into why this change happens, the rationale behind all of it, the challenge, and so on. So the first change we can see is probably the timeline. Instead of a 1 week on ground, we're seeing more than a month programs. That would be the first change. And the other noticeable change would be there's more on project planning module than project management skill modules. So on that regards, the team has to make a certain adjustment to a few things. One is the objective. How we design program is usually based on backward planning, starting with what our goal is, what our objectives are, and then we go to what the program we're gonna have and do backward planning that way. So our goals have always been the same. That is what remain constant, to nurture and build a community of servant leaders in Southeast Asia who are motivated to do community project, impactful and sustainable community project. The goals stay the same, but then our objective varies due to the context. For example, last year, our objective is to foster skill management. So there's a lot of module on skill management, and the context provides that we are able to do it because we have on-ground submit. But then instead of that, this year we cannot do on-ground, but then our objective will not change that much. We'll focus more on project planning instead. So that can change. So for that 1 month, a bit over a month, those will be more the focus of the special online modules. The rationale behind it is that the group, the team discussed, and we realized what we are comfortable at delivering, what we are comfortable at pursuing, and also what is visible at the moment, while also keeping in mind that our goal will still be achieved. So those are the so to recap that, one of the challenge that we faced was to actually brainstorm a lot of things into perspective, into forming a new objective where it is comfortable for the team, the people, to actually move forwards, while actually sticking to our same goal of nurturing the community. The other challenge would face with building an approach that fit into the context. So we decide to go online, but we understand that going online in 1 week is a no-no. So we have to actually be able to be flexible with our approach. We decide to pull through with a 1 month and a bit over a month programs. So those are the challenges that we have been discussing and so on, and how to still build a communities of servant leaders that have impactful projects in the context of COVID-19 and after, while having switched to different objective and approach. Thank you, Atika, back to you.
Thank you very much, Varun. So it's nice just to hear about how you guys extended and pulled the project timing from 1 week to like a whole month. That's very new for SEALNet Wireless, I think. And just for you guys' information, we initially planned to do it in Brunei. Everything was set, and we sent all the proposals to all the related agencies, but because of the government restrictions, we couldn't do it. And we are glad that the team are able to come up with such interesting and very innovative program this year. So thank you for that. So maybe we can move on to Project Vietnam. I think Project Vietnam is also facing a similar issue, because right now I think Vietnam is leading all this COVID fight, and they're very strict with this COVID restrictions right now, that it's quite difficult for them to access the beneficiaries right at this moment. So, but more than that, I think has more to say on the process, on how they have overcome this, what are the process that they have to go through. So over to you, Tam.
All right, thank you, Atika. Hello, everyone. I'm Tam. I'm currently the co-leader of PV20LD Lamdong. It's kind of a very interesting situation we're here today. And, you know, like when it came to building our project, a SEALNet project, is it implemented in our initial perception that's going to be like 2 week on ground originally, where on the maintenance, the mentor is going to, all right. Sorry, because I'm not having my computer right here, so it's going to be a little bit glitchy. So, so in our initial perception, it's going to be like a traditional structure of a summer project, which is a 2 weeks being on ground, where the mentor mentees will meet and kind of by having a very close interaction during the first week, which is the leadership week, and then we will immerse into the local community in our second week, which is the service week. But due to the COVID-19 situation, we cannot see the possibility of conducting that original 2 week format anymore. So the first thing that came into our head is, what can we do as an alternative but we still be able to achieve the initial objective that we put up. So instead of doing a 2 week on ground, we are planning to do only 1 week on ground at the moment, which will happen in December of 2020. And hopefully when the times arrive, the situation can kind of ease out a little bit. And there's a very good sign from the Vietnamese government, which is they're going to reopen international flights from non-infected regions. So hopefully we'll be able to welcome a significant number of our team members to Vietnam in the upcoming December. And I think one of the biggest change that we have is to do the entire leadership week into a 1 month online program where we engage our upcoming mentees and also another 4 subcon participants. One of the reasons why we decided to expand our leadership week into a 1-month program is because when we look back at our initial objectives, the main thing that we wanted to do is to raise awareness about organic farming and food safety in Vietnam. So there's no kind of like a specific way for us to do it, but when we look back at what we have right now, there's a way for us to actually authorize our online platform to keep this conversation going on, which is the more important thing that this project can be able to do. And also, due to the fact that there's going to be a gap between our online program until December, which is our service on-ground period, we're going to expand the learning experience of the participant in our project, which is to study about organic farming and food safety issues in Vietnam in accordance with leadership development as well. So our program is coming up at the end of June, the beginning of July. And currently we're recruiting our mentees to participate in the project. And what I can say right now is there's a lot of things that have changed already. And one of the biggest challenge that we faced is the same with Kieran, which is to do a lot of brainstormings and also risk management in order to see which will work better. And still the question, the most important question is, can we still achieve what we put up at the beginning? So that's it for my part. Thank you, Tika. Pass the mic to you.
Thank you very much, Tam. I noticed that you have a similar approach with Pirun and wireless, the wireless team, in a way that you have actually stretched the time while keeping your objectives, your initial goals and initial objectives the same. And I think this is not an easy thing to do, especially during this time. So thank you for the information. Let's move on to Project Philippines. For Project Philippines, as I know, Nana, who is here, is currently not based in Philippines, which is even more probably a challenge for her right now. But we would like to hear from you. How do you actually keep yourself going? How did you? What are the ways that you and your team are actually doing to overcome these challenges over at Project Philippines?
Okay, so thank you, Atika, for this question. So basically, just a little brief about Project Philippines. Initially, our project will plan to conduct in 26 July to 8 August. But then since the COVID case in Philippines has rise up like every day, like for example, today the case is like 21,000 already. So we don't see the possibility of conducting the project in July or August anymore. That is why probably around April, we decide that, okay, let's move project to further. And then we choose December, which is the most feasible month that we currently think that we can do the project. And I think the challenges for project right now is that since we move project to end of the year, meaning that for core team, for core team and core PL, like we are working on this progress we'll be working on this progress for almost 1 year already. And then for the mentor whom we are already selecting abroad, they will be working in this project for half year already. So the challenges, one is might be the commitment from both core team and also the mentors. Second would be the fundraising challenge, in which, for example, in Philippines, this is also what I got from mentors and core team that are staying in Philippines. They said that most most fundraising organizing, well, I mean, most fundraising even right now is mainly focused on COVID. Like they fundraise for COVID, but it meaning that it would be challenge for us to ask for donation for us the project mental health, which is not really relevant to COVID situation, especially when Philippines hit the COVID situation in Philippines hit so hard compared to Cambodia. So another challenges would be how we reach out to sponsor and partner, because some of, for example, the venue partner, some of the venue are still locked, some of the province in Baguio are still locked down, meaning that the venue are not opening. Some company that we plan to reach out to are also facing some financial difficulty, which also hard for us to reach out to and build a sponsorship. But with all of these challenges, a very first things that PP20 do is to make sure that co-PL, core team, and mentor enjoy the process, even though we move the project to the end of the year. So like normally how we do is we do debrief, we do the reassessing the commitment with core team and mentor in order to more like a debrief session on to check on their commitment and how do they feel of working with us so far, how do they feel with being a mentor of Project Philippines so far, knowing that our project will be another 6 or 7 months ahead. And secondly is that, secondly would be, beside moving project to December, we also, around the 6 months, we are organizing online training for the mentors to develop their skill and prepare for the project on ground in December. But at the same time, also we also plan some of other initiatives that can connect or build a bonding among core teams and mentors, because I believe that, like Bung Jot has mentioned, SEALNet is also, our core value is also human and human connectivity. So without feeling belonging to the project, or without feeling that I am connected or we are connected to all the members in the project, that is also one of the issues that the team can easily lose motivation as well. And other than that, beside the team, we don't change much on the goal and objective of the project, but we only change these kind of approaches in which we prepare a lot of online training to equip core team and mentors to be prepared for the project, such as human resource training, fundraising trainings, and also some service component related training, such as the mental health and suicide prevention awareness webinar that we will do on late June as well. So I guess this is so far of the challenges and how we adapt to the new normal of COVID-19. So yes, I back the floor back to Atika.
Thank you very much, Nana. So that's kind of refreshing to actually hear from somebody who is doing a project in Philippines on how the COVID situation is changing not only like our lives, but also like the landscape and the interests of people, and that in turns affect things like fundraising for our projects. So we will talk more about fundraising in the later section. Thank you for your information. I would like to pass this to Afnan from SEALNet Project Brunei. For your information, our project actually started last year, and currently the team is continuing the projects. We have more than like 70 students actually lined up for a workshop last March, I think, and we were set to have like activities in June and May, and suddenly it couldn't happen. So outreach team is currently having like a haywire. It would be best to hear from Afnan himself on the challenges that they have like experienced. So Afnan.
Thank you so much for that, Atika. So now one of the biggest, okay, to recap a little bit, the project was, like Atika said, took place in last year. So currently we are in the sustainability phase where we are doing a follow-up and as well as expanding our activity workshops and as well as our beneficiaries to different schools. And initially early this year, we gained 3 more beneficiaries from 2. So it was in total, supposedly for this year, we were gonna have 5 workshops in total in 5 different schools. Uh, and all of the 5 workshops took place were planned to take place from somewhere from March until June. But prior to that, in the early March, when the COVID-19 came, started to become worrying in the global scale, that's when we sense a little bit of disturbance in our plan, and we kept on having concern from from our beneficiaries about our approaches, because we focus a lot more on having hands-on activities and physical interaction between person. That's what we rely on the most when doing our workshop. And before at the first week of March, that's when we were announced that schools on the 11th March, the Ministry of Education immediately dismissed schools to shut down until further notice. So meaning to say, all of our workshop that we planned from March until now was cancelled, or yeah, cancelled. So that's one of the main challenges we had during that session. It was a very abrupt changes with the situation where all of our workshop was cancelled. And even if we plan to extend it somewhere in July or August, most of the local members are going to have their discovery year or internship for the next semester, which leaves the new members are the ones who's going to handle. But the next concern is we tried to prepare them as much as we could, but again, the the amount of commitment each of us have also interferes with our progress as well. So, and this also happens, all of this happens during the period in the frame of time where all of us in the university, at least most of the local members, are reaching towards the end of semester, where we were handling a lot of our own studies and reaching, and as well as adapting to the online platform. And it was a really bad situation for some of us, as particularly one of the things that really um, not damage, is quite significant. The significant causes significant impact to the project is having internet access. So the internet access here in Brunei it's decent. However, the quota is quite limited, and it's more costly than expected when we are moving a lot more to digital, and especially using video call. So that's the main challenges when we have to go through during this time of period, where most of us we're not used to conducting any activities through online, and even that and even coping with our studies. So all these two another causes a bigger challenges to our team. It pulls down our momentum in team in carrying out for our motivation. So another thing that affected us is our motivation in keeping things running. Afterwards, during that situation, uh, a lot of us became, at least from what I observed in my team, a lot of us have becoming slower due to having less contact, as we often see each other in the institution more often than through WhatsApp or social media. So, but currently, one of the things that we tried to do is to restart the momentum again by starting out with the communication, and this time we try to push again to push ourselves to be able to adapt into the online platform. So, and we're trying to utilize as much as we can through the different platforms such as Zoom and Google Hangout, and we tried as much as we can to get into that, and as well as to be more efficient in our discussion when we do discussion or meet up through, as that date when Wi-Fi internet is very limited. So the approaches is that definitely going try to adapt to the online platform as well. And when we tried to came up with when we tried to came up with an idea to get back with our beneficiaries, a lot of times it's more difficult than expected, because recently it's only this starting this month the school is starting to reopen, but it's still following by phases. And the phases that we started from are the students who we are not supposed to get involved with, especially those who are gonna have public exams soon. And while the rest will be going on the later in the end of the month, 27th of June. So we do have time to prepare. However, we also have to be very concerned. We have to be aware with the restriction that's going to be imposed when our contact with the students. So those are the things that we have to deal with for now, as to in a way that we are trying to adapt for our members ourselves into the online platform, and as well as try to comply with the situation as well, even though we're trying to push our workshop to our beneficiaries. So that's what we do now. Try to adapt as much as we can. So back to you. That's all from me though. Back to you, Atika.
Thank you, Afnan, for sharing such a really vivid and detailed explanations on the challenges that we practically are facing, and things that made us disappointed quite a bit within these past few months, because we were already expecting on doing this hands-on activity with these kids. So thank you very much. So before we move on, just to summarize all the things that we have heard from the panelists, there's no use in looking things back. Let's welcome to the new normal. The traditional structure of empowerment approaches cannot really work this time. We have heard of external challenges such as border restrictions in Vietnam, internet access restrictions in Brunei, the changes in social interests in Philippines, and maybe internal challenges due to like self-motivation issues, the team dynamics, and the communication. Those are the challenges that we have suddenly have to face during this pandemic time. And it's quite nice to see that some of these projects, even though your approach have to be different, you have tried to keep your initial goals and objectives the same, which is quite important, because you are staying true to your project, the project that you have been planning since last year. And yeah, it's for the first time we are doing a lot of things online, especially on things that we could do on ground. And it's good to see that time and space right now in the virtual world could be stretched. It could be longer. So thank you for that information. We can probably move on to this next session. As I've already mentioned, for the panelists, the questions that our audience have given us, we have passed them to the panelists, and they have seen the detailed questions that you are very excited to ask of. And the first topic that we notice is that everybody is like just so curious on what empowerment means to you guys, right? What does empowerment means to you? What does empowerment means to your team? Or how is it translated in the work that you do? How does it have to change? May I invite Youth to briefly share his thoughts on this?
Okay, thank you, Atika. I would like to first thank you for the participants for actually ask very good questions. And of course, these are all tough questions that's very hard to answer within the next 5 to 10 minutes. But I think I will try to be as precise as possible. So let's start with a short story. So it's a story of a man who actually went to Vietnam, met a bunch of kids, but then was actually told that it's important to actually keep on encouraging those kids to move forward despite they are in a situation that's dire than yours. And of course, 6 years later, this guy is still here within SEALNet, still working in this organization. And along the way, I actually met a lot of good mentors. So the first mentor was younger than me. The second mentor is hopefully he actually not hearing this, but I think he actually impacted me a lot in how I work. So supposedly all this journey, what sum up to the word empowerment is this. It's give you the courage and motivation to do things by yourself and believe in yourself enough to actually start new initiative. And I think within SEALNet as an organization, we believe in the term intergenerational mentorship. And through mentorship, we actually encourage all the mentor as well as project members to continue on inspire the next generation to take actions. And those actually come from human motivations. So it's peer motivations. And I think the key term here is actually encouragements and motivation from mentorship that actually helps SEALNet actually sustain this long. Most of the SEALNet structures involve mentorship, and each step of the process actually it's a sense of encouragement. It's not a sense of guide. It's not teachers. It's not boss. It's not leaders, but it's about like having someone there to actually tell you or actually show you that you can do this, ensure you that you can actually move forward, and actually encourage you to take a step forward and take lead. And I think like the word empowerment itself, as for me as a teacher, I think is actually very important to start from a perspective of like, how would you willing to help another person be a better version of themselves? And I think throughout the SEALNet journey that I have encountered so far, each of the project has their own stories, and it's the story of empowerment itself already. From me as a mentee, become a project leaders, Savit Nana as a mentee, and then while as participants. So each of us have our own story within SEALNet, but then it's not just within SEALNet that we feel empowered. We actually feel empowered outside of SEALNet, doing things, leading initiative, and continue on motivated other people and alongside us motivate ourselves to keep on going. So trace back, empowerment is a very big word and it's very hard to coin. But then I think the two words that associate with empowerment is the sense of encouragement and the sense of motivation. Whether or not you are able to encourage another person to take a step forward, and whether or not you are able to motivate another person to take initiative. So I think that's when you actually know that you are able to empower other people. So I think that a shorter version of the word empowerment itself, consider that.
Thank you very much, Youth, for the story and for the keyword, a sense of encouragement and motivation. So we'll keep that in mind. We will also invite Tom to share his thoughts on this topic.
So thank you for very eloquent interpretations of empowerment already. And I think you covered pretty much everything that I want to say. So therefore, I want to emphasize on the aspect of mutual learning and inheritance in empowerment. And there's one of the very interesting thing about our members in BB20LG is most of their motivation comes from the various projects that they participated, either from SEALNet or from outside SEALNet. And those are some very significant experience that took part in shaping the person who they are today. And the fact that they feel that they're being like tremendously benefited by participating in those projects and actually do good stuff for the community. And they bring back that spirit to BB20LD and continue serving the communities that they're passionate about. So that's about inheritance and mutual learning. So coming back to the discussion about mentorship, like the mutual interaction between the mentee and the mentor. So mentors are not teachers. Mentor are not the one who will be there and kind of like tell you everything you need to do, but rather than the person who offer guidance and work along with their mentee during the journey, and particularly in the SEALNet project, is to learn about different things together. And within that interaction, we have experience sharing. Sometimes some of the story from the mentee can be a great source of inspiration for the mentors themselves. So yeah, and that's pretty much what we always try to foster within our project at BB20LD. So as a co-leader, I try my best not to interfere a lot into the working dynamic between my team members, so that they will have a sense of ownership. Firstly, they'll be able to have a sense of ownership of what they're doing, and secondly, by doing that, the team members will have a chance to explore themselves into further domains that they can only get access to it without spoon feeding from other people. So and also talking about empowerment within the context of COVID-19 is very important for us to maintain the kind of motivation that can barely be affected by any situation. So the fact that we keep ourselves intact and keep ourselves inspiring one another is also something that we always try to do among the team, so that people will have a sense of union, the sense of everyone being united to think about the same thing and to move forward as a whole. So 3 words for my interpretation of empowerment is inheritance, mutual learning, and motivation. That's it for me.
Thank you very much, Tam, for the 2 words. May I also remind the audience, remember the this QR code that I have shown you before. In this QR code, if you go in, we have a question for you, which is, what is empowerment to you? So you could probably also type in there what empowerment means to you, apart from what the 2 panelists have said. So thank you very much for a very refreshing thought. For me personally, what I have gained from Tam is mutual learning, and prior experience actually affects motivation a lot and hence empowerment. That is something that we have to keep in mind, especially even in projects Brunei too. So maybe if we could open the floor to the audience, if there are certain things that the panel has not yet addressed, and you still have some curious questions regarding the topic on empowerment, you are open to ask. Maybe one person, if there is. None? So if there is none, then I'm going to assume that the both of you have actually give such in-depth thought on it already. So thank you very much for that. So let's move on to the second topic, which is on keeping your team motivated. Even in the previous sections, we have seen some of the panelists mention that it's quite hard to keep self-motivation within themselves too, or pushing their teammates, keeping the team dynamics intact. So what are your thoughts on keeping your team motivated in the midst of this sudden challenges? May I invite first Afnan?
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, so to give a little bit of background, this was continuation of, well, actually it's the current situation where even myself is feeling very demotivated, because I haven't done. We've been staying at home for months, and we don't really go to our schools, except when we have to return our books to the library, maybe. So, and so one of the things that we try to start in keeping our team motivated is every once in a while we try to check up on them, on their current situation. So having a every once in a while tapping into our members is that we want to show that we want to tell them that every once in a while, hello, we're here. Don't forget that uh, that you're not even though we're isolated, we don't see each other, but I'm still here, that I'm talking to you, that I'm still trying to keep in touch with you, so that they feel this sense of that even though that they're in their room, they're not alone. There are people who are out there looking after them. So it's part of the things that keeps people feeling secure about themselves, and as well as with what they believe in, that we're, and considering that we also share the same goal, and especially in by involving in the same project, it also has it's the same thing as try to making them feel that they're not, again, there's a lot of the time it tends to reflect back of not them feeling alone, because when we're alone, we only listen to our thoughts, and our thoughts can change to something from really positive to really negative in just a matter of time, really quickly. So that's why that having members or leaders who every once in a while checking their members quite maybe often, helps them to be reminded that they have a goal, and they have their motivation should not that their motivation is that they shouldn't forget about what they want to believe in, what they want to deliver, and what they're part of. It is something is for the community and for the future of the people that they care for. So, but of course, that along this way there are backlashes. um, okay, it starts from it normally start the backlash often starts from yourself, because even if you try to push yourself in approaching people after so long, after you haven't talked to them for a while, it sort of makes you feel it we tend to overthink that we may be overthink that we're probably just bothering them, and when we try to talk to them, then suddenly they're just saying that, oh no, this is not the right time, please don't talk to me right now. It kind of hurts, it hurts actually that when they say that to you. So but in fact that if we try to keep on, we try to we do it again, but we set a different approaches, it might just work to it might just work that we try that there that these people are starting to feel that, oh, uh, that they're feeling that someone actually care. So the backlashes from what have experienced is a lot of them it comes from myself, because I don't talk to them and I feel disconnected to them. So I don't know, so I don't feel like if I talk to them I'm not gonna bother them. So that's the thing. And so, and then considering that now we are also another situation where the problem arises is when we're trying to set a meeting through online, and we forgot to inform the other person, the person that we're supposed to inform. And sometimes that even when we talk to through the online platform, we feel very time constricted, as normally here in Brunei, we usually have online discussion or meeting at nighttime. And yeah, the difference is very significant when we see each other and when we go through online. So, and then as well as that sometimes that the energy level of our members can be quite low. So even that making that meeting, that discussion to be very inefficient, and it's a waste of time. That when they're starting to feel demotivated and all, you prolong that meeting and you're also feeling the same way like them. So that's the problem that arises throughout this time. And some and but recently what we tried to do is try to rethink a little bit lah. Try to rethink a little bit about how we talk to them, and just try to be goes back to the topic to be empowered, to be back to empower, having your own, reminding yourself about what you're trying to achieve, and try to get as much, to push yourself as much as you can, because in the end, if no one's gonna move, how are you gonna move? If it's not up to you, we have our own choice, right? So that's what I feel. That's what one of the tips that I feel like that I can give is try to find a reason to push yourself forward before dragging someone else from the back. So yeah, and now at least it's a bit better. It's a lot better than before. Yeah.
Thank you, Afnan.
Yeah, I think that's all for now. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Afnan, for the very deep reflection. I'm the words that have actually made an impression to me is that when you say, even though we are actually within our walls, we are actually connected to those on our walls because we are virtual. So a simple hello or how are you can actually make a difference. Afnan has touched a little bit on motivation, especially from the internal perspective, on how improving your own self-motivation may be infectious to your own team too. So maybe we could hear about another perspective from Pirun on this topic.
Right. Thank you, Atika, for the question. Thank you, the audience as well, for the question. Thank you, Anand, for the answers and elaboration as well. Let me start with two things. First, if you have a self-motivated team members, you are lucky. Second, I believe it's not co-leaders alone who have the responsibility to keep the team motivated. Everyone have to do something about it. Let me start with the first one. Self-motivations is actually difficult, but it's actually more foundation than we think. Most of the time it's internal motivation that keep us going instead of external motivations. And then it comes to a context where let me give a brief background in terms of how this has all changed. So an example is we start our thinking, our team forming, our expectation setting, saying, oh, we're gonna address these issues in this community in July. And then COVID hit, right? And then what happened is that everyone is affected. Not just the project, but the team member itself is affected. Effect in terms of how they study, of how they proceed with their work. There's just so much uncertainty in a short period of time that everyone have to absorb. And then everyone have to adjust their schedule and priority. That's the first thing. How do you keep yourself motivated throughout all of that? The other thing would be the expectation toward the project itself. I believe project have their expectation setting at the beginning. Co-leaders and so on, mentors and so on, encourage all of that. Did we do a reassessment toward that expectation or not? That has everyone priority and expectation toward the project change or not as we keep changing our objective and approach? Like while we are changing our objective and approach and so on, we have to be aware that our expectation toward the old version of the project is no longer there. We have to make new expectation. So has this new expectation meet with your own needs or priorities and your concern? So those are actually also another source of self-motivation. In a short period of time, I think everyone have a lot to go through, adjusting their schedule and so on. There's a lot of unproductivity going on as we shift all the schedule that is expected, and a lot of stressful moment. So how does everyone keep themselves motivated throughout all of this is a big question. Then that's lead me to the second point where it's not just the co-leader alone who have a role to play, it's everyone that have a role to play. And how do we play this role is to open up for honest discussion or honest talk. You can start with, firstly, honest talk with yourself. Have my expectation change? Have my priority change? why did I lose my motivation, right? And if honest talk with yourself is not enough, find someone who you're comfortable with to have honest talk with, like your co-leaders, your mentors, or maybe the same mentees as you, who are your friends, who are make you comfortable to be honest with them and to readjust, to discuss all of this. Then from one for one last touch is I want to conclude with that everyone should be ready to let go of members who are not able to carry on, because in the current context, with the changing of priority and expectation and so on, the changing of schedule as well, some our members might not be able to be committed to the same commitments or be motivated to the same project or ideas as before. So everyone have to have this honest talk, but at the same time, be ready to let go so that everyone can feel comfortable at coming back later on. So I would just conclude with that, and I give the floor back to Atika.
Thank you very much for your talk. I think it's important in a way that you have touched the need to be the need for everybody to actually accept things which are difficult, accept pain, accept and talk about these difficulties and difficult pains, things that you are not ready to talk about. If you communicate it with yourself and with everybody, maybe you could be self-motivated. I think I would like to actually extend this topic a little bit, because initially when we asked the panelists if they are interested in this topic, everybody was like, well, I would also like to contribute. But before that, if there is any specific questions with regards to team motivation or communication or conflict management in this sense from the audience, would you like to ask? We open the floor for you guys to ask specific questions right now in this topic. Is there anybody who would like to ask about this? No? Okay. All right, so then maybe I'll also invite the two people who wanted to talk about it, which is Nana just now. She also wanted to talk a little bit about how they have keep their team motivated. So Nana, can you share to our audience?
Okay, so thanks, Atika, for this question. So before I want to move on to how to keep yourself or how to keep your team motivated, I also want to touch upon, like Bong Pirun has mentioned, is how you also keep yourself motivated, especially as a co-project leaders. So for me, like even if I'm a co-project leader for this project, but there is also some day that I would ask myself, why am I doing this? Or like, do I still have the same level of commitment and motivation to lead this project for 1 year, a whole of 1 year, since maybe 1 year or more than 1 year since 2019 November, when we applied this project, sent a proposal, and then until this year in December. So normally what I usually do is, just like you mentioned, is to more like a self-reflection, asking or reassessing yourself again. What is your personal why? What is your personal why that you want to do this? What is your reasons, initial reasons that you apply to be a co-project leader as this project? So I also want to add that if any organizers or co-project leader may somehow someday feel like you don't have motivation for doing what you are doing, it is totally okay. It, as long as you can trace back to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is beneficial for me, and what is beneficial for the community that you are advocating for? Especially for myself, mental health awareness is really big things that I advocating for and lead this project from my heart. Not only do these things to community, but it's also, I also have my personal why I do this, why I lead this project, why I carry out this advocacy throughout the years with SEALNet and also other organizations. However, if talking about the team motivation, um, first of all is like Bong Piron has mentioned, is at the beginning of the project, we always have the expectation setting. So make sure that you also have to reassess the expectation with your core team. Second is that maybe every meeting or like every month, taking time or like schedule with your core team to do the debrief or reflection in order to reassess their commitment again. And also for us, PP20, we set a system of when that we normally meet as a core team. So normally we meet first and third week of the month. So we wouldn't have that kind of problem of asking when are you free, can we meet this time or this time, but we already have that proper system that every first Monday of the week 1 and week 3 of the month, we always have this kind of meeting. And in every of our regular meeting, we always not always, but we usually reassess or at least asking, are you enjoying the process so far, and if not, why? What can us as a team can do? And if the teams are not comfortable to share, and us as a role of project leader, you need to be really aware of whether or not that person is open to the team, or they have something that is really personal and they cannot share to the team in the meeting or in the debrief session, that it's us as a co-leader maybe approach individually to ask them, or like just talk, listen, be an active listening of why do you feel this way, if there are anything that you can share, because sometimes the fact of losing motivation can be, yeah, like Bong Piro have mentioned, can be from internal and external issue. It can be because of the system of the project, because the project has prolonged for so many months ahead, or maybe it's because of the personal issue, him or herself, that concur him or her to continue with the project and so on. So yeah, I think this is pretty much what I can share in terms of personal level and also team level of how to keep motivation, is to open a communication with the team, and always aware of how they feel and how they progress with us, with people, with core team, and also with the project itself. Yeah, I would like to give the floor back to Atika.
Thank you very much, Nana. I think your practical tips has a connection to what the previous panel Piran has said on expectation settings, especially when all these challenges suddenly occur. The expectation that we set in the beginning have suddenly been chaotic, and it's important to do some debrief and reassess the commitment, but not just that, but also reassess their expectations, and having a system on how you meet and how you ask for the welfare of the team. So thank you very much for that. Practical ways. I would also like to invite Tam, because he was also interested in this topic. Maybe if you would like to share more on your thoughts on this.
All right. I think just a little bit more of sharing, because everyone's already talked a lot about how we can keep our team member motivated. So for the case of my team, there's one thing that we're always aware of is we are not meeting one another until December, like in person. And participating in a SEALNet project, one of the things that you're gonna be expecting a lot is to actually meet people and talk to them face to face and interact with them and do stuff like very interesting social exchange and other kind of stuff. But we're not doing that until December. So the thing we need to do right now is to start building the connection between the team members right now. We cannot wait. And there's one thing that we as co-leader try to do is to do personal check-ins with other team members. But eventually, did not turn out to be a very efficient way of motivating everyone. So we tried to kind of like rethink about that, and it turned out to work better when we build up in a more micro level, which is from the department itself. So it's not about you. It's not only about you keeping yourself motivated, but also know how to instruct other people to motivate themselves and motivate others. And everything is kind of like in mutual dynamic between the team members. So I think so far so good. Our team is our monitors is still trying to kind of like having more personal connection, to develop more personal connection with the team members. Apart from the fact that we've been working a lot for our alternative plan right now. So hopefully through working and through talking and kind of like not counting the virtual distance in like meeting virtually, people will still be able to develop a very meaningful connection during this very audio time of COVID-19 situation. So yeah, I think pretty much that's it from my side.
Thank you, Tom. What you have mentioned is also quite similar to what I have experienced in me and Shime in Project Brunei. We try to, in the beginning, we try to talk to every single one, and then we decided that, oh, that's taking too much of our time, so let's just try to delegate it to the team leaders. In a way, we are trying to not educate, like try to how to say, empower our team leaders to also feel to also create a sense of belonging within the team, within their own team. So thank you very much for that. We have actually a question in the chatting said by Mon Ficheka. This probably could be related to being self-motivated, because she said, I always face the dilemma between the deadline of the team projects or assignments, and when my team members say they are busy with their tasks, that they could not be able to complete the work for me. I would like to ask the panelists how to deal with these issues effectively, because these are the things that could affect, these little things that could affect your motivation in completing or being engaged in the team. So would any of the panelists volunteer? Yeah, Youth?
Hi, Vichika. Thank you for the questions. And I think I actually like to tell this to my student very often. So there's two methods that you can actually help your team be motivated and complete tasks on time. One is always think about the task in smaller chunks than actually trying to actually have everyone stick to just one timeline. This means that if you actually allocated tasks among your team members, making sure they break down into smaller components, either 30% complete, 50% complete, or 75% complete. I usually find it useful to break down into 3 parts so that you're actually able to monitor throughout the whole process. Second, don't dismiss the idea of like small encouragement. Celebrate with them regarding the small achievement that we complete 30%, 20%, or any part that they do so. This will actually help you encourage your member to go forward, but at the same time, it's also help making you feel better and lessen the workload throughout the whole process. It's all about the mindset of how you complete the task as a team. So it helps building trust along the way as well. So I think that would be a quick tip to actually how to keep your member stick to the timeline and keep them motivated throughout the whole process. Smaller tasks and also emphasize on small achievement throughout the whole process.
Thank you, Youth. That's a very, very useful, even for me as a person, because just to share, I used to keep all my tasks and bullet points in like big chunks, like finish my report today, finish my thesis today, read one whole paper today, you know, and I get really, really stressed by it. And somebody told me, you know, even if you read one whole paper today and that's all you can do, it's still something to celebrate. So small achievements do matter. Is there anybody else who, any of the panelists who have any thoughts on this question? Yes, Pirun.
Yep. Right. Thank you, Adhika. Thank you, Wajika, for the question. I believe it's actually a very, very tough question. It's not as easy as it sounds because we have to first put into a perspective of team members who are assigned in classroom context. And how are they different from team members who are in project context? One that we are formed by ourselves or one maybe not formed by us or just arranged, right? And how they are different is actually related to their motivation as well. Their motivation to go to school may influence how they complete their task. Their motivation to do a certain project may influence how they do the project assignment and so on. And the other part is their ability. Because everyone go to school is not at the same level, we have to understand that there are slows, there are fast learners and so on. The same for project. I raise all this not in terms of pointing fingers. I raise all this in the point of have you empathize with the members you're working with. In a sense, what is keeping them from achieving their task or meeting that deadline? I agree with you. The point of breaking it down help a lot. I also do that and it helped me a lot. But that breaking down does not apply to everyone in just quick solution because like I mentioned in my first statement, if you have a self-motivated team members, you are lucky because in most cases, you do not. So now then, going back, if we try to understand what keeping the team members from achieving the task, perhaps we might find something to talk about in terms of moving forward. But then we also have to keep in mind, as I conclude earlier, there are some time that you have to let go. We have to still put into a perspective that there's sometimes you have to put extra effort than the rest. There's sometimes you have to deal with free riding. There's sometimes you have to deal with stressful situation. So that would be the take from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pirun, for your speech. Because I think what is it makes the most impression to me is your last word, know when to let go. Because sometimes it's gonna stress you even more if you push yourself. So know when you can push further and know when to let go. So that is important. We have actually a really big question from Sugun, to the point that I think this could be a reflection for all of us instead of like a question. Is that how do you think SEALNet has been kept alive for 15 plus years despite there being no full-time employee? Reflecting on this question may help answer the question of keeping this team motivated. So I'll just keep this as a really big reflection for all of us and probably for youth to deliver to all the co-presidents and the board of SEALNet so that you could deliver this to the members of SEALNet. And for the sake of time, let's move on to the next topic because this is also very important. We have received questions on fundraising here, but I would just like to ask if the person who sent us the question on the fundraising would like to actually ask us in person. Is she in? Oh, she's probably. Anyway, the question is, during COVID-19, there are a lot of fundraising efforts going on, focusing on tackling issues caused directly by COVID-19. How do your teams fundraise and convince potential donors that the issue that you are advocating also need to be supported during this time? So may I invite youth probably to answer this really difficult question. How do you do this?
Hi. Okay, so I think I love whoever asked this question. And I would like to answer that in two specific parts. So the first part is about key messages. Fundraising wise, it's important to understand what are the key messages you're actually driving out. It is understandable that the social course is important, but within SEALNet, there are one specific elements that actually remain the same out of all of the projects. is building service leaders in Southeast Asia. And one thing that I like to believe is this as well. Youth development will always be relevant no matter what the social cost or social issues gonna be. And I think that's something that every project needs to actually put in front of the whole thing if they actually plan to fight forward. And second part would be to understand the relevance of all social issues within the communities. I do understand that COVID-19 is one of the biggest current pressing issues, but at the same time, we also have heard news about like social inequity, Black Lives Matters, and a lot of things that is happening around the world that's still relevant. So think about the term global citizens. So when you actually talk about global citizen, every single one of the information or every single issues matter and related to one another. And we need to understand that no matter what the theme of your project going to be, it's going to actually contribute to social sectors. To convince the funders, or I would say that, you need to understand a few things. One, break down the type of funding that you are aiming to find. So they're usually sponsorship, which I think very common a lot for many projects. Two is grant and proposal. We actually grant and support grant that you actually apply for organization for larger amount. And of course, the SEALNet traditional way, fundraising. So if you're actually looking for sponsorship, I do understand that it's actually getting harder to actually get sponsorship in the current situation. And it's recommended to actually put it the least priority in a sense that most of the company will likely to go for COVID related issues. That is very understandable. However, if you're actually looking for funding, making sure that the funding that your project remains relevant too. So there's organization that work specifically for the same theme of your project, for example, as mental health or organic farming or youth development specifically. Some of the organizations still remain true to their actually core activity and core missions. Therefore, you need to understand that from the grant you're applying for. And the last part would be for fundraising. Fundraising is very flexible and it's all about the message you're sending. So remember the first thing that I said within this sharing, youth development will always be better and relevant to all social issues. And I think like for most of the message that we are sending out is that the reason why we're doing SEALNet project in general is to develop service leader in Southeast Asia. So we're actually facing the idea of like, should we put the development sector first and then the social issues alongside it or vice versa, right? So ideally at this moment, we need to understand that this youth has the passion. Despite the issue of COVID-19, they still persevere and trying to overcome the issue to actually fight for the cause they believe in. And I think this is a type of message that we're trying to send because service leaders are those who advocate for social issue that matter most to them. I like when Nana said she actually very passionate about combating mental health and promoting safety mental health. That's something that I think spoke to people, youths that actually able to actually drive their passion and then willing to do a social project amidst all of this to actually solve something is worth investing in. So ideally, it's about how you draft the message in your fundraising to ensure that the elements still remain the same within those contexts. And I think that, I know it's a difficult question. I hope I actually answer some part of it, but I think it's back to the two key message. One, understand that youth development will always be the core of a lot of activity that service leaders are doing or program like this is doing. Two is to understand the type of message to actually send to the right target funding organization or funding opportunities so that you're actually able to actually gain more engagement through there as well. So I think that's pretty much my ideas on how the fundraising should actually process forward through out of all of this.
Thank you, youth. I was actually going to reiterate again about the youth development will always be relevant. I think youth has mentioned it about 4 times. So this could be a catchphrase for you guys if you want to do some fundraising to other people, if they have different interests, especially interests in the current COVID issue. You can say, hey, youth development will always be relevant no matter when the time pandemic or non-pandemic. So thank you very much for that. Um, is there any other questions related to fundraising that maybe the audience would like to ask? You can ask to us or maybe put it in the Zoom chatting.
Can I add a little bit?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
one
sure.
quick bit. I think it's also about this as well. Also think about COVID-19 as an opportunity. It's in a sense that it will change the new normal and it will forever create a new platform for people to do things. So if the project leaders or the project team are challenged enough or feel the challenge, feel free to elevate your projects even further by incorporating why both of the issue are relevant to one another to actually adding on, in other words, like a double bonus in a sense. I see this as a potential for some of the project as well because it's actually affecting emotional well-being of people. COVID-19, of course, affect emotional well-being of people, and at the same time, the economical crisis that will come after will be so large that everything that help people prepare for it will be very useful. So I would say that if you feel up to the challenge, feel free to also elevate your pitch further by actually incorporating the idea of how could you prepare people through your theme of the projects while incorporating the idea of COVID-19 along the way. So that's just for those who are daredevil out there who would like to also further challenge themselves.
Thank you very much, Youth.
Can I add
Yeah.
on a little bit more on
Yeah, sure.
what all right. So I want to talk about I want to follow up with the point about thinking about COVID-19 is an opportunity for you to do new stuff. So actually that's like the main argument that I always trying to make whenever I talk to my team member in terms of how I can motivate people to continue moving on with the project. Because like if you can think about COVID-19 as a challenge that you have to overcome in order to continue with your project. But you can also think of it as a pool for experimentation, because a lot of things that we're doing here right now is very different. It's very different, like talking, like contextually within SEALNet, right? There's very few SEALNet project that experience like the same thing that we are going through right now. So there's a lot of things, like a lot of interesting ideas that was proposed among my team members, and actually it turned out to be really great. And there's more kind of like unexpected outcome that we might be able to achieve by thinking about it as an opportunity rather than something very difficult and kind of like a hindrance for our growth. So yeah, I mean, in conclusion, COVID-19 for my team member is like an opportunity for us to try out things that we never done before. And if it turned out to be successful, it can be something that we can be able to learn about, and also for our kind of like further senior generations to look into it and find a way for themselves. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the insight. I think we're running low on time, so I'll just continue with this topic if anybody would like to share some more ideas on it, or maybe questions or comments. None? All right. So
If okay.
yeah, sure.
I was waiting for someone. Okay. I think I think for this during this COVID-19 is a time of innovation for youth because people are listening more to find solutions. And given how each country and their respective governments are focusing towards uh, attending the people, what about the community itself? They have to take care of themselves. And given how the situation is, some situation in communities, sanitation levels are different. So, and that affects greatly on how the community's well-being. So, where youth development steps in is, again, like I said, a time for innovation where we provide help and as well as suggestion for solutions to develop a preparation and alternatives for the communities in maintaining their well-being as a whole, from the older generation towards the younger generation, so that all of them are uh, better prepared towards this COVID-19. And I'm not just talking about in terms of health, but as well as thinking of how they can attend the communities with the members of the communities. Because if the people who are in charge are away, who else is going to take care of themselves besides them? And sometimes youth have this passion to lead the community themselves in looking after themselves to be in the longer run. So that's what I think is this time is a good opportunity for youth to rest, actually.
Thank you very much, Afnan, on that. And that actually is probably quite a great point to summarize like the whole session itself. Well, before I summarize, before I close this session, I would just like to say we actually received questions from Anissa too on communities. What are the things that your communities and your countries have done during the COVID pandemic as an inspiration? I'll leave that to you guys, and I will probably send some message, some email to you guys. We'll probably send this as an email to you guys for you to share to all of the members or the attendees right now, the participants. So probably to summarize, thank you very much for the panel, for their time and their input and their time. I know we're all here, we are all not really that expert in our field right now, or probably we are still newbie also trying to run our projects, but you guys are very inspirational and very useful input that you have given. So to sum up, I think if you know that most of the time we are challenged by the social norms, like most of our projects are challenged by social norms or current context. But now in COVID-19, this social norm is actually broken. The current context is broken. It's like reset the game. So you can find opportunities within this chaos, and this is the time when you can experiment and innovate, and hopefully your projects can be elevated to much greater level. So with that, I thank you guys for joining this session, and would also like to share to you guys that our next session will be on how volunteers find themselves, self-motivate themselves through volunteerism. And we will probably put it up on the our SEALNet Project Brunei website and also our Facebook for more information. So do join us too next time, and thank you very much for joining us this time. Thank you. See you, everybody.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for the time, everyone.
Thank you.